January 8th, 1956. On a strip of sand along the Serenade River in the jungles of eastern Ecuador, 5 young men had spent months preparing for this moment, flying over the Wadani villages in a small plane, dropping gifts through the trees, practicing phrases in a language they'd learned from a single contact in the outside. On this morning, a group of Wadani came out to the beach, and contact was made. 3 days later, all 5 men were found, dead in the river. One instrument pointed at the Serenade River in January of 1956 returns a verdict that the mission was failed and the story was over, and it's time to move on, to put together the pieces of this broken story. But let's consider that the instrument was wrong. This is a problem physicists recognize. The science sentence for week 22. What are some ways that light is observed? Reflection, refraction, spectrum, wave, particle. 5 different instruments to measure light. A mirror shows a reflection. A prism shows you its spectrum. A window refracts. These are 3 that everyone can agree are intuitive, repeatable, predictable. But when you reach wave and particle, the instruments stop agreeing. Run an experiment designed to detect wave behavior, and you'll find it. Frequency, wavelength, and interference patterns. Light's clearly a wave. Run an experiment designed to detect particle behavior, and you find that instead. Discrete packets, photons, individual hits on a screen. Light is particle. Both are confirmed, but what's happening here? How can they both be repeatable? How can light be one thing and appear to be another simultaneously? How does the instrument shape what you find? If you change the instrument, do you change what's real? The physicists call this wave-particle duality. The question that it raises has never fully been settled, and the instrument of observation really does change what's observed. It's not wave or particle, it's wave and particle, both at once. That word "and" is going to matter more as this story goes on, so hold that and we'll get back to the Serenade River. The Commutative Law. 2 versions, A plus B equals B plus A, and A times B equals B times A. It's almost too obvious to need a name. You already know that 5 plus 3 is 3 plus 5, so why bother naming it? Because it's not always true. Subtraction is not commutative. Division, matrices aren't commutative. The most interesting operations in mathematics and in life don't operate this way. Your order matters. The direction of approach changes your result. And the commutative law names a special case where it doesn't, where the truth is stable no matter your direction. After those deaths on the Serenade River, Elisabeth Elliot didn't go home. She changed her approach, not her destination. Her love didn't change, the mission didn't change, the medium did. She was testing, word by Wadani word, whether this particular operation was commutative. Challenge 3 students this week are in a philosophy seminar asking whether true and truth are the same thing, and which is greater. Aquinas, Bacon, the foundations of wisdom, that is the same question in a different register. Which operations hold regardless of the direction of your approach? And whether your child is in Challenge 3 or they're in Foundations, your student's actually working on the same problem, and we'll get back to it later. For and nor, but or yet so. Not a sentence, fanboys, the coordinating conjunctions. They look small, but the difference between Jim Elliot died and the mission ended, and Jim Elliot died, yet the mission continued, isn't just a punctuation, it's the shape of the universe the sentence lives in. The conjunction in the middle determines everything, and but are the ones to watch this week. In Latin, we're learning the pluperfect, aram, aras, arat. I had already done. Not what was happening, but what had already been completed before the story we're watching even started. For example, there was a Wadani woman named Dayuma, who had fled the tribe years before the killings. Through her, Elisabeth had already begun to learn the Wadani language. She'd already been given the vocabulary that she would need, the literal words, before she knew she would need them. She'd already been given an instrument, and she didn't know it yet. Your students' timeline cards this week run from 148 to 154. NATO, the Korean War, Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement, Jim and Elisabeth Elliot, missionaries to Ecuador, the Antarctic Treaty, the Vietnam War, US astronauts walking on the moon. We've talked a lot about Jim and Elisabeth Elliot this week, and we're going to keep telling that story. I think it's important to see how this perspective that we're talking about, seeing the light from different ways, can change your reading of the event. NATO, the Korean War, the Antarctic Treaty, the moon landing. You can see all of these things in one of two ways. You could see it as nations jockeying for power, measuring progress in megatons and missile ranges, or you can see it as human achievement. You can see it through the lens of nations coming together, finally breaking down walls, choosing to set aside differences to look towards scientific discovery. Both things have truth in the readings and interpretations. Both results can be achieved. It's just a matter of perspective, just like our story with Ecuador, Jim and Elisabeth Elliot, a tragedy on a beach, and the results that came later as Elisabeth Elliot, who had been quietly learning this language for an uncontacted tribe, was able to see it open a door, but did not yet know where the door would lead. Elisabeth walked into the Wadani village with her 3-year-old daughter, Valerie, and they stayed there for 2 years. She learned their stories, she built trust in one-on-one conversations, and over the years that followed, many of the Wadani came to faith in Christ. That same event, January 1956, the same river, but a completely different story. It depends on your instrument of observation. Dvorak's Serenade for strings is the sound of this movement. The fourth movement begins with a question in the violins, a searching, something unresolved, something that's not yet arrived. It's the sound of 2 years learning a language in grief, of carrying a yet without knowing what it holds. And then something settles. It settles into place and feels as if it was always true. It's not a new answer. It's the arrival of one that was always coming. Listen to Serenade for Strings this week with your student. Notice the change in the movement as the question becomes the answer. Jim Elliot wrote in his journal in 1950, 6 years before the events on the beach, "He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose." Challenge 3 students this week are translating Cicero. They're learning antithesis as a rhetorical device, opposing clauses held in precise balance. Elliot's line is this form exactly. What he cannot keep, what he cannot lose. He was doing theology. He was doing rhetoric, both at once. It's not sentiment, it's precise observation about stability, about the things holding constant regardless of the direction of approach. What he kept and what he lost are not commutative. They don't swap. Jim Elliot had already done the math on eternity, and he chose accordingly. In John 8:12, Jesus says, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." That's a but sentence. One thing canceled, another granted, and it points to a sixth instrument for observing light. Not reflection, not refraction, nor spectrum, particle, or wave. This one observes, not by measuring, but by following, into a jungle with a 3-year-old and not knowing what you'll find. This whole week is an and sentence. Wave and particle, grief and grace, death and resurrection. 2 things that seem to cancel one another out, held together by a small word that refuses to let either win. Reflection, refraction, spectrum, wave, particle, 5 ways to observe light, and 1 more. This week, your student will build a popsicle stick catapult, and they'll pull the arm back, storing potential energy in the bent wood, releasing it, watching as it arcs through the air. The arc, whether you call it a wave function or a Newtonian trajectory, is the same. They won't be thinking about any of this. They're thinking about whether it's going to land and who it's going to hit. And that's exactly what they should be thinking about at this age. The grammar has its place, and the history when it's memorized, the music when it's heard enough times that you can finally listen, will give meaning to that arc. But the arc will have been there all along. And that's week 22. If you learned something, share it with a friend. Tell us what connections you see, and remember, learning is a lifestyle, so be an everyday educator.